This must have happened less than a week ago. So you can, I mean, Victor, you're hearing all this through your spider, and like you could, this is, you can tell this is abject devastation because Abernathy must have left home, and then the attack must have happened like while he was on the river just outside of Brennanine. And as far as he knows, none of his family has survived there. The city was blown apart by a tidal wave, the lighthouse was pulled down, and then Endeline forces came up the river and sacked it.
Okay, then.
So the high tradesman of Brennanine, his job is to fund and organize Brennanine's military. And a lot of the conversation is whether Endeline has forces and what's going to happen next. Are they going to send ships up along raiding the Mendelin coast? If they secure one of the port cities, like up here, they can march overland to the lake. Or they are a naval superpower. Without Nornir's port guarding it, they have access all up the river, all the way up the lake that Abernathy must have just traveled. And this conversation goes long into the night and in great detail for as long as Victor cares to listen.
He's going to listen until the conversation stops.
So you're not taking a long rest tonight. You're sitting on the wharf until, I mean, by the time the sun comes up and fishermen come out to the wharf to get into their boats, I mean, you're getting weird looks from them, and the conversation inside is still going.
At some point, Evie's owl will come by and just sit next to Victor and give him the chance to download this information to her.
So while I guess the question is, while I'm hearing all this stuff through the spider, can I also use a telepathic link to relay it to Genie or Ekon or somebody else?
What's the range on the telepathic link?
It's like a mile. 1 second.
Yeah, if it's a mile, you're probably the inn is probably right at the outside edge of what would be possible then, because it's fairly close to the manor.
Range is 1 mile.
Okay, then yeah, you can make a link with Evie once Evie and Ekon. Well, Ekon's already at the manor. He never left. He's just downstairs.
Yeah, and I don't know how long that mind link you had earlier lasted, but hasn't been that long.
Yeah, if it's within a mile, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, so Victor is gonna relay this information. Who is the actual most responsible people in our party? Edmont and
not Edmont, Victor. What's the opposite of Victor?
Evie's the opposite of Victor.
You're both rogues who use knives. What do you mean?
Evie has done nothing but try to help her family since we've been here.
So remember how I said I don't know how good Genie is at things, but she thinks she's awesome? I feel like Evie's the same way.
So,
Victor and Ekon are going to get the info.
You relate this information to Ekon via telepathy?
Yeah, and Edmont.
So, the telephone game that happens here, I mean, Victor doesn't have the military trained to really understand the discussion. You get the broad strokes of it, but they go into levels of tactics and troop movements and supply lines, and you just don't have the brain for it, unless you specifically have a background or a skill. And I don't think any of you do.
Evie has tactical knowledge. She has a class B. She's literally a master of tactics.
Military tactics?
Well, tactics and organizing a party.
You'd probably be really good at the job, but you would not be the person that could answer the questions they're discussing tonight. Mm-hmm. The high tradesman would also be an expert in these kind of tactics, and he'd have years of experience doing it.
As soon as I get I don't need anything advanced. I don't need anything complicated. I just need the very basic, most story. I kind of relay that to Genie, and then he would go directly to Nigel's room and tell Nigel instead of Ruby for once.
So within the hour, because I mean, if you go and wake Nigel up and tell him what's going down, I mean, within the hour, then, I mean, he would immediately get Ruby. Like, he doesn't, he's not going to keep this from Ruby.
Yeah.
But within the hour, House Veritas has a second conversation room going about this topic. As far as you guys know, this news just reached Brennanine just now. And Abernathy was one of the first people informed.
If Nigel doesn't know, then we are the first people to know outside of that room.
Nigel did not know when you woke him up.
Okay.
But I mean, he convenes. Let's look. Who all did we call in? Ruby for sure. Probably Cormac. He just sits in on most of Nigel's councils. Unless you advise him otherwise or convince him otherwise, he would also call Denny to the room.
That's fine.
Okay, and he wouldn't say no to his mother either. So by the time Evie and Edmont return home after having a fun night of drinking, I mean, the tone of the manor when you guys get home is very dire. Lights are on that shouldn't be on this time of night, and within a few moments, everybody's meeting in Ruby's Solar, discussing this, and you guys enter the room, maybe partially in your cups.
Evie might have had a couple
partially.
of glasses, but she's fine.
Only partially.
So Victor's out on the wharf controlling the spider, and the rest of you are now in Ruby's Solar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you guys spend the night?
Yeah, I think so.
Ruby and Nigel, their main interest, outside of just the horror of the lighthouse being pulled down and Nornir being sacked.
This is a very serious issue. The Republic is at war, whether they like it or not.
By this time, I mean, somebody in the church has the knowledge, and House Oleander has sent a representative to the Ambersons to speak on it as well. And yeah, that's how you guys spend the night. So I guess I'll ask this. Victor, you have a telepathic link, so you'd be able to send your opinion if you have one. What aid, if any, would Veritas immediately offer to House Amberson?
I mean, do we have military?
We would probably offer refuge for the
So,
Ambersons.
in the long term, if it becomes open war, you would have some duty. Actually, I think your great aunt, I've got the family tree up, but I have to remind myself. Your great aunt Anfred would have an opportunity to raise some number of soldiers, men-at-arms, send some number of knights, if called upon by the triumvirate.
Yeah, I think the most immediate thing would be that we could offer the Ambersons a place to stay, either within the city or back in West Vorpal Rabbit territory. That we come
Well, the
from.
Ambersons in the like, Brennan hasn't been sacked. The Ambersons in the city still have their manor.
And there's no known survivors outside of the city.
I think Victor meant we would take in refugees from
Refugees?
Nornir, but it doesn't
Okay.
sound like there are any. It sounds like the entire city was
There
destroyed.
certainly would be some, but that's very, very far away. I'm more like, what is Veritas's measured response in the immediate future?
The other thing we could do is we could go investigate and try to retrieve any relics they had.
Is anyone in our house a high enough level noble to actually cast Teleport Circle?
That's a good question.
Because that is on our house spell list, and that's the most immediate thing we could do is send someone there magically to extract some number of people.
Well, not just that, but also we want to make sure we extract the relics.
Well, we would have to have someone on the ground there to cast that spell, wouldn't we?
Yeah, unless
We'd
there's a
have
circle
those
we
in.
can teleport to in the province.
So, teleport circle. There's some interesting things in the lore about those kinds of teleportation circles. I would say almost certainly, so if you picked it as one of your house spells, then yeah, Ruby for sure.
Okay.
Maybe not Nigel, but Nigel... Well, I was about to say Nigel would have had somebody in his party coming to Brennanine who would know the spell, but almost certainly Ruby knows it if she's...
Yeah, and I figure Nigel probably has a scroll or two tucked away somewhere. If he's a high-level rogue, that's more likely than being a noble.
There are a lot of procedures in place for learning the keywords to link up to other teleportation circles. And there was something called the third Sundering, dealt with a kingdom that used teleportation circles to spread its influence vast, far and wide, and wanted to retain the wealth and knowledge of that particular magic, and inadvertently caused what's called the third sundering, which is where man's connection to magic was severed. Before that happened, any man could learn and use magic. After that connection was severed, it took great skill, practice, and education to become a practitioner of magic. The question there would be, does Veritas know of teleportation circles to link to in or around Nornir? If so, would it be appropriate to offer that assistance? And if so, do those circles still exist after the sack?
Yeah.
This is all information that Ruby would be very interested in finding out.
The Ambersons might also know the code if we don't, for a circle.
The problem that she immediately sees is if you offer this and they accept, and she creates this circle, what's to stop Endelin troops from finding it and using it?
Aren't they temporary?
They
She
can be,
cancel
but
the circle at any time.
there are also ways to make them permanent.
She could. We could send something or someone through after we're done to destroy it.
Well, what she's saying is there's a circle on the Nornir end, yes?
Yeah.
If it's not destroyed, if it's still accessible, and Endelin has seized it and knows what it is, and is just waiting for it to open.
Right.
How long would it take for us to get there by ship or by normal travel?
It would probably be exceedingly dangerous. I mean,
Yeah,
it wouldn't take more than, it's take maybe a day of hard riding over land to get to a port in Mendelin, and then from there maybe a day or two of sailing down the coast.
So, for what it's worth, the other level 5 spell on our list is Scrying, and Ekon absolutely put a 1,000 gold piece Scrying font in the tower.
Okay.
So we could scry the circle to see if there's anyone around it, and then teleport. If one existed.
Ruby and Nigel have a brief disagreement over whether or not this is a good idea. Nigel's position is that if they can offer this help, and it would in fact help, then they should do so. Ruby is more reserved because she's worried, especially if something happens and like an Endelin general is on the other side, manages to get through and carve his way through like the Veritas estate, it could just be making things worse. She wants to take a very measured response. She figures it'll take about a day before there's like an official church declaration of what has occurred. And then maybe another day from there to learn for sure by use of scrying what's going on. They would also expect that the church would come make a formal request to use that scrying font in the near future. And so there's some question of whether you should wait for that request to come or if you should be proactive with it. What is Ekon's
Ekon's completely
thought?
100% proactive, and it also a reminder that I think Victor specifically secured one of the other buildings as a receiving portal for a teleport circle. Like, we didn't put a circle in it yet, but like he was very concerned about the security of such a thing.
Yes. I mean, you have to cast the spell like every day for a year
yeah.
or something.
Yeah. But we do have an area for like potentially bouncing back to.
Okay.
With a temporary circle.
So scrying works on a particular creature you choose on the same plane of existence. Yeah, I would say you would have secondhand knowledge of any such person in Nornir. Unless you bring like Trieste or Speaker Violo or Abernathy in, and they would have personal acquaintances in Nornir you might be able to select. I'm just reading through the spell because I don't think it's ever been cast before in my presence.
Yeah, I have both the mirror and the font in the tower. I was a little ostentatious when I was giving it on one.
Instead of targeting a creature, you can choose a location you have seen before as the target of the spell. And that doesn't require a save or anything. You can just put it in Nornir. I don't think Ekon has ever traveled to Nornir, but I think we've established that Victor has, and Ruby and Nigel almost certainly both have. And Ruby would be the one casting the spell, I believe.
Yeah.
looking at this map, Evie might have, I don't know how practical this is, but she's going to have a tactical suggestion.
Okay.
Okay. So, this river that we're looking at here that Abernathy came up is now basically completely open to the troops of Endelin if they want to come to the Holy City.
That's what Victor is reporting that they're discussing heavily at the inn. Because without Nornir protecting this bay, Endelin could very easily seize this river and control everything along the length of it.
So our house we're not earth magic specialists, but we do have high-level earth magic on our list, like transmute rock. Is there any way we could use that to blockade the river so that ships cannot travel? Is that a possibility that our is there a possibility that our house would have that in our capabilities? To discuss as a strategic option.
Where do you get your tactics from? Is that a class feature or is that a skill that you're...
It's a rogue class feature. It's a mastermind class feature rather.
What's the name of the feature?
Master of Tactics. It's a mastermind. They get it as soon as they take the level in mastermind. If they get it.
Yeah, let me give this a quick look.
I mean, I think as far as like the skill goes, it relates more to like.
Oh, this just lets you help somebody 30 feet away from you.
So that wouldn't apply to any military tactics?
It doesn't make you a master tactician. No, this is what lets you make the help action from 30 feet away.
Well, I assume that reflects a certain amount of strategic acumen.
Oh, it reflects exactly what it says in the book. It's not a terrible idea, and you could probably cut off the river with enough magic. The problem there, make an intelligence check. I'll let anybody currently in the room make this check. We'll see who rolls highest and raises the point. I'll roll for Ruby. Ruby bad at intelligence, apparently.
9.
8.
Well, she didn't roll
Orson,
that bad.
save us.
Sorry. That's an 8.
All right. So yeah, Ruby points it out because she beat all of your rolls.
Rolled a 10. Uh-huh.
Tactically, it would prevent ships from entering the lake, but it wouldn't prevent anybody from holding the river south of the lake. The other problem is convincing, like, the high brass and nobility of Brennanine that it's a good idea would basically be impossible until the sails were already on the river, at which point it would be too late.
In
other words, it's not a terrible idea, it's not a practical one either.
What if we... Like... What if we built a... What if we put like a powerful combat ship to patrol up and down the...
You have one in your pocket?
The Endelin Navy would decimate it. They are a naval superpower, and the Republic is not.
But do they have the engine? And the cannon?
That's something you don't know. None of you have that knowledge. Unless one of you has a spy in the Endelin Navy. And actually, Victor, you would know the answer to this question. None of the people in the room containing your spider has such a spy. And the actual capabilities of their most modern ships is a topic of discussion happening in the room. It's all just speculation.
Okay, so the things we have on the table are scrying and then a teleport circle to get a Onir to look for survivors. The other option is blockading the river, which the city itself would probably not agree with, but might actually be a tactical possibility.
Well, Victor's opinion is that we should go and secure any artifacts and relics that this house Amberson had.
What about...
All right, to that, the city's already been sacked. All of those relics, if they're still there, have already fallen into the hands of the Endelin.
Yeah, you're going to have to go fight the Endelin army if you want those relics.
Yeah, where did Edmont...
Keep in mind, this actual event happened at least about a week ago. Word has just now gotten to the city.
Where did Endelin get the capabilities with which to cause this massive flood?
That's an excellent question.
Could they also cause the same here?
Probably because they have an unsealed artifact they didn't tell the church about.
I mean, that's the ocean. This is the ocean, right?
Yeah, but Lake Lothril is very deep. Brennanine is a larger city than Nornir, and it has walls that face the ocean. Or face the lake, rather. And there's not as much water in the lake, that's sure. But it's just, you can only speculate. You don't know for sure.
But who knows what that magic is capable of, and if they can cause the same thing to happen here.
And about this point, the conversation is interrupted by one of the servants coming into the room. So I beg pardon, but there's a man knocked at the door, and it's after midnight at this point. It's not a time of day to receive visitors. He says it's urgent that he sees Speaker Nigel. Shall I send him away?
Evie looks at her father, but she says, if you're going to talk to him, I'm going with you.
Nigel sits back in his chair. By all means, send him up. And Ruby shoots him a glance that tells you that she does not agree with that at all.
Evie also looks a little like she doesn't think this is a great idea, and she looks at Ruby, and she gives an indicator that she has her knives on her. And Evie is like on the balls of her feet, like ready for some shit to start.
The servant brings the man up, and he's wearing a dirty orange cloak. And when he pulls it down, as he enters the room, the first thing he does is lock eyes with Evie. The fact that Evie's on the balls of her feet and is ready to pounce has not slipped by this guy whatsoever. Mm-hmm. The second thing you notice are the tattoos on his face that have been covered by the cloak that look exactly like the man you killed in your basement.
I didn't see that, though.
No, Jeannie sure did, though.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees the recognition. And he holds his hands out in front of him, wrists up, and says, I come peaceably. You've heard the news.
Of Nornir?
He looks devastated. By the way, this man's not having a good night. He's like, I submit myself to chains if need be, but you need to know what I know.
Speak quickly.
What was that?
Speak quickly.
Be quickly?
Speak quickly.
Speak quickly. And he tells you, well, first of all, he tells you that he knows that House Veritas has seized his cult clubhouse in Brennanine, which is why he's come here and not to the Amberson estate or presented himself to the church. He says that he'll speak as quickly as you like, but he has to know that you'll hear his words. He has to know that you'll listen.
We'll listen.
He tells you that he has had men in Nornir. Well, first he confirms what you already know. There was a chapter in Nornir that he was in correspondence with until you interrupted it. That he was having some... He doesn't refer to his order as a cult, obviously. That would be inauspicious. He refers to it as the Order of the Hand of Fire. Says that they have had men working with the church in Nornir to have some church reforms done that would be palatable to the Hand of Fire. And in the course of that work, started to come across evidence of essentially Endelin sleeper agents being placed into the church. Apparently, for some reason, the ruling house of the Kingdom of Endelin has started to make a play to reclaim the Holy Church. There haven't been crusades in hundreds of years. Not in anybody's living memory, at least. But he thinks that that's exactly what they were planning. Although the news that reached tonight is far and away more than he would ever have expected.
Evie will say real quick, "Are you Chrisen?"
He nods.
Pleasure to finally make your acquaintance.
And he especially looks to Ekon and says, I submit myself to the judgment of the corrupted church. But it's important that I tell you what I know. I cannot in good conscience let more people die to unseelie and devilish magic, as what has happened in Nornir.
Keep
And
talking.
If he has a spellcasting focus, I will remove that from his possession.
He surrenders it to you.
Okay.
It is it's a small orange crystal. And it has slots in the back of it where it can slip over 3 of his fingers. So he could basically palm this thing. And when you hold it in your hand, it feels warm to the touch, like you're holding like a warm biscuit or something. If you hold it in one place in your hand too long, it starts to burn your skin.
Evie will wrap it in cloth and hand it to Ekon.
Sure.
And he tells you that though your beliefs differ, you must understand that it's not the will of his order to see Air's eye tumble. It's the last thing that they would have wanted.
Do you know how Endelin came to this power? The power to bring down Air's eye.
He tells you there's been some speculation, but he hasn't... and he dances around this answer because he doesn't want to accuse you guys of interrupting his correspondence, even though that's literally exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
He says the last news that he had gotten from Endelin is that there were bizarre reports of magic users, sorcerers, wielding magic without the use of relics. Types of magic that have not been seen since the Third Sundering. He received a report yesterday from one of his agents in Nornir saying that they had put one of the Endelin agents to torture. And in the torture, it had been revealed that they had secretly crowned a High Aethar in Endelin. That behind the closed doors of the kingdom, at least, they have already restructured what they're calling the New Holy Church.
Which means they are going to come here and destroy the false Holy Church.
And he says, alas, I cannot prove or provide evidence of anything I say.
Do you know what demands were given to the people in charge of Nornir?
He shakes his head. Well, what demands do you mean? You mean demands of the Endelin from the emissary?
Yes.
He does not.
Okay.
He's not sure that anybody does.
Do you know, has anybody seen have you or anybody you work with seen what they're packing firepower wise? Like ships, things like that?
He had heard reports that some of the cities along the northern rivers of Endelin had been making more ships than usual this past year. But those kind of reports aren't always out of sorts. It wouldn't be completely unreasonable. Because Endelin has other neighbors further to the south, and they have military skirmishes out in the ocean and across the ocean. So getting reports that, hey, they're building more galleons than usual didn't raise any particular red flags. But they do have military vessels, both ocean-going and river-going.
Are there any of your agents still in Nornir that you think may be alive? Particularly you could well describe or might have a token of?
He couldn't swear that any of them are still alive. And Ruby speaks up, says, wait, and turns to Ekon. So are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?
I think we should go to the tower and just take a look at the city for ourselves.
Eyes on the ground. I tend to agree with my brother on this.
Ruby shakes her head. So I'm not having it. And Nigel puffs his pipe, and you can tell he's very angry, very disturbed by the whole situation. He says, I agree. Sending eyes into Nornir would be good, but I can't in good conscience send any of my own blood.
I think he's suggesting that we scry the city using his information, like centered on like any agents that he's aware of to see if they're still alive. Is that what you're suggesting? Yeah. Not actually going, not yet.
Okay. Kristen agrees, but like he said, he couldn't swear that any of the men he knows working in Nornir are still alive. It might not work.
Another option would be to fly a familiar there. It would probably only take a couple days.
There's a range limit.
It's 100. That's why Victor's sitting out on the wharf. He's not in the room with you guys.
Well, a familiar would give us like a... You need something familiar there to replace the scrying element. If you say my familiar's there and I can scry my familiar.
That's true. So you're going to try to have Ruby scry into Nornir to see situation.
I think that's the most. I think that's the most prudent course of action at this point.
We would see with our own eyes that this has all actually happened.
In the immediate future, do you take this man prisoner?
Yeah.
I'll let Ekon decide what to do with him. He's not my business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
As long
Ekon,
as he's not
realistically, you could make use of this man maybe for a day or two, but if after like an official pronouncement has been made, like the news officially reaches Brennanine and requests are starting made of houses, if at that time you haven't done anything with this guy, as far as turning him over to the house or over to the church, that's going to raise weird questions.
Yeah.
Isn't Ekon the church?
He is, but he's also a man of House Veritas, and this man's being kept prisoner at the Veritas estate.
So
what I'm saying is, realistically, you probably have a day or two with this guy before you're going to have to reveal to the church, hey, this cultist made himself known to us, and this is what we're using him for.
Yeah.
Okay, so the ideas that were bandied around, like I've been taking notes, and I have some. So we can't permanently block the.
We can't get permission to permanently block the
It
river.
also sounds like with the kind of magic these people have at their disposal, that's not going to do much good anyway. It
Yeah.
would slow them down a little.
Slowing
but it's not
down.
gonna stop them.
Well, slowing down is the goal here. I think.
I think we have to face the possibility that no one is going to like this. But evacuation of the holy city may be the only way to preserve the government of the republic, the church, anything that's still here. I mean, we're not prepared to fight enemies of this strength. Nornir fell instantly.
They're not going to escape. What about an armored boat?
Yeah, Evelyn probably have those.
Oh crap! Like, well, we don't have any boats, right?
Brennanine does. I mean, it has a standing navy in the sense that they patrol the shores of their lakes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in actual practice, Brennanine does control the entire lake that it sits upon.
Right. Which is a small inland sea, basically.
Yeah, it's an enormous lake, but and the Triumvirate has the legal power to call the banners. They could put out word to lords in Grand Fernisco to send men to fight, and they would be honor bound to serve, and then that could filter out to the other provinces as well.
I don't think we have time for that in the immediate now. We have to. They're going to be here maybe within days.
Do you remember that scene in? What I'm talking about is setting up temporary defenses to slow an advancing army down. I think that is a step we should take. Things that we can get the ball rolling on and set up very quickly, but at the same time, maybe kind of skirt around the issue of permission.
That's almost certainly impossible. I mean, let's put it this way. Many, many rivers feed into Brennanine.
You can't collapse this river without someone seeing it.
There's a reason this river's on the map and none of the other ones are. Okay. It's an enormous, very wide river that galleons could sail up into the lake.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, dragging a giant chain across and pulling it taut is not going to work.
Like the river that you're thinking of, like the chain that was in the harbor at Dunfoss,
Yeah.
which I stole from Game of Thrones.
Yes, actually, I was thinking of Game of Thrones. I forgot it was in Dunfoss because it didn't work because
It was out.
they tried.
They didn't
It was out
use
of
it and it
order.
rusted.
Because Alex is the only D&D character who has ever performed preventive maintenance.
So like the river that the Lucky Mooring used to sail up and down is too small to even be on the map at this scale.
Okay.
So the situation looks pretty dire. There's a reason all these very serious, scary men are sitting in a room in an inn, going over every detail with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah,
Suffice
there's
to say, nobody gets any sleep tonight.
Right.
How long until they call the rest of the council?
I think the council's already been called. Everyone was in that inn.
No, Nigel isn't. The heads of the other provinces aren't.
Not yet.
Yeah.
They're
The big three are already
Yeah.
on high alert, though.
right now.
I think it
They're
was-
just receiving the news, and so probably tomorrow morning, the church or the High Speaker will have some kind of pronouncements.
Here's
And-
something we can do. We could send our familiars down the river and see if there are any enemy ships approaching the city. We could actually find out for sure. Are they coming this way? Are they coming?
I don't think they have the range for that, do they?
A familiar can fly wherever they can't tell us, but they could fly out and see,
Right.
and then they could
And
come
fly
back
back.
and
Good scout and return. Yeah.
Yeah. Just. Yeah.
Send your octopus upriver.
well, I'm thinking more of the birds that can fly and can do it very quickly.
Yeah. We could also send.
Like Lux
could-
could be up and down this river in probably a day and a half.
I
Yeah.
think we should send my familiar to. We should use my familiar because I never used the damn thing.
Sure.
And does somebody else have a familiar that they don't really use?
I mean, Victor does. Victor does, but it's in the inn right now.
So come sunup, an hour or so after sunup, Victor, the meeting in the inn breaks, and at this point, Abernathy is exhausted. This is the worst news he's ever received in his life. Everybody else has business they need to attend to. So sitting on the wharf, this is after the fishermen have gone out into the lake, and it's strange because watching the city come to life at sunup, nobody else knows anything's happened yet. You're the only person there with this news. Then somebody accidentally steps on your spider and you take 86 psychic damage. The speaker comes back out, gets back into his carriage, drives away, and it comes... the only people in the inn to spy on anymore are Abernathy and the sisters.
Did they? I'll stick around for a little bit longer, see if they say anything.
No, they retire to bed as soon as... Well, I mean, the girls were not in the room to begin with.
So yeah, so once they retire to bed, Victor will pack up his spider and drag himself home.
You have like a little matchbox with like a house drawn on it for your spider.
Yeah.
So Victor returns to the manor. Are you doing this scrying thing this morning?
Yeah, if Ruby's
I
down,
think-
if we
I
can
think
convince
that's the
Ruby
fact.
to do it.
Okay. Ruby expects there will be formal requests made of House Veritas in the next day or two, as far as, hey, you guys know how to scry. Can you do that? Hey, you guys know Find Familiar. Can you help scout the river? So getting the ball rolling on those things, she thinks being proactive. The only problem she has with it is that it tips your hands, because you're going to have to answer the question, how did you know about this before anybody told you?
Ruby, I know that you and I haven't always seen eye to eye, but I can, in good faith, claim that we took Chrisen prisoner under my authority as a member of the church, use his information, and then tomorrow we'll return him we'll bring him to the church's dungeons.
And there's just no... Kristen is just stone-faced as you say this. This man is just resigned to his fate. Ekon, go ahead and give me an insight check.
Yep. It's a 13.
What strikes you about Kristen is the man is clearly a zealot. A man from his order lit himself on fire in your basement and tried to kill your cousins. At the same time, though, he's willingly turning himself over to the church just to bring you this information that he believes can save lives elsewhere.
Right.
It's not the behavior you would have expected from this cult.
Ekin's a little weird, so. In fact, Ekin, when no one else is around, when it's just Ekin and Kristen, because Kristen obviously can't leave his sight, he'll just say, look, you don't really need to give me a reason to put in a good word for you with the church. I think I can see it pretty clearly.
So by the time Victor returns, you guys are all gathered in... You have a scrying pool in your tower?
In the tower, on the second floor, yep.
The first thing that is tried is... Let me make sure that there's not a limit to what she can do with this spell. As far as how many spell slots she has. It's a 5th level spell. She's higher level than all of you. Her focus is almost certainly worth more than 1,000 gold.
Well, the font and the mirror, there's both a font and a mirror worth 1,000 in this room, because again, very ostentatious when I refurbish the temple.
She also still needs her own spell focus to work the spell, though.
Yeah.
So the first thing she tries is a location. A place where she and her father, probably before Jeannie and Evie were even born, a journey that Nigel's family had made to Nornir, a place that she remembers from her girlhood, a place where they stayed relatively close to Ayer's Eye. She recalls it because from the window from the room where she and her mother were staying, looked out and could see the lighthouse and could see the glow cast out on the ocean. When she tries to scry using the location, the spell doesn't work because the location has been destroyed, just obliterated. After that, she tries a few of Kristen's acquaintances. Do you have him restrained in any way? Do you put him in irons or put a bag over his head or let Victor
I have
him?
spell focus, so I'm not too worried beyond that.
Okay.
I'm
And I'm assuming there's a pair of fists ready to start hitting him if anything goes wrong.
Edmont will clap him in irons and we hold him steady.
Okay. And he does not resist. He's surrendered his spell focus. So yeah, Victor, you walk into the tower, and they're surrounding. They bring you up to speed on what they're doing. And Kristen tries a few of his acquaintances, which is why I have Fantasy Name Generator open here.
Victor.
And ideally, anyone you might have a picture or body part or possession of would significantly help the spell.
Yeah, Kristen pulls his friend's ear out of a pocket. What the hell are you talking about?
I don't know.
I mean, he seems like that kind of guy, right?
Like, he has letters that might count as possessions.
The first couple of people are dead that he attempts. Eventually, you see in the pool, does everybody see it or just Ruby? An invisible center within 10 feet of the target can see and hear through the center as if you were there. So only Ruby can see through the scrying, is my read of this. Does that sound right to you?
That tracks.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the way the rules are written.
So she tries one of, not really an associate of Kristen's, just a man that he's met once that's in the cult cell in Nornir, named Emir. And Emir was badly injured. And he's currently in a bed in a small wooden structure. And Ruby reports that she hears the waves of the ocean, even though this structure must be very deep in the city. It's not built along the shoreline or built down in the docks. Nonetheless, she hears the waves of the ocean crashing very nearby. The man was badly injured when the lighthouse came down. And he's currently in kind of like a ramshackle, just convalescent structure that was thrown up. About half of the city had been hit by this just massive tidal wave. And many thousands of lives must have been claimed in an instant, including anybody stationed at the lighthouse after this great fires broke out all through the city. And Endoline ships appeared on the horizon. And at first, some people in Nornir thought that they would offer aid, they would offer assistance, because they'd had no cause for conflict with the Endoline within living memory. But they didn't. They sailed directly up into the city. The man she's scrying is telling this story to the man next to him, just sharing experiences from the past week or so, watching the great Endoline galleons navigating the waters in between buildings in the city. So deep was the destruction into the city. What's left of it is in control of Endoline forces, and they don't know. There's a lot of speculation about what's happened to the governor and their family. Whether any Ambersons inside the city are still alive, nobody knows. That's kind of what you get scrying from this guy. So a little bit more concrete information, but there's still a lot of fuzzy details and speculation about what's actually happening within the power structure of the city. And then, Jeannie, you were going to summon a familiar and send this familiar down the river?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. Do you think it's better just to send them straight down the familiar so he has something to scry, or do you want the familiar to immediately turn around at the first sign of hostile forces? What do you guys think?
Let's do one of each. I'll send Lux out behind him.
Okay.
So yeah, let's like a day's probably. How long is it for a familiar to fly down to that lake?
What kind of familiar is it?
Hawk.
I think a hawk,
A hawk.
which I think has the most movement speed.
Yeah, I resummoned the hawk. That takes me 10 minutes, so I have the ingredients.
So apparently, depending on winds and probably 16,000 other variables, a hawk can cover between 200 and 300 miles in a day. So each of these hexes is 20 miles.
Right.
So figure 5 of them is 100 miles. So probably one day to fly down along the river to the coast, to the bay here.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
How
And
long?
then
And would
on the
that
second
would be
day,
enough
they
time
could
to
reach
actually
Nornir.
get above the city, right?
This, I would say, the second day, because the failure would still have to stop and rest, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
The
it's just
magical creatures. I don't know.
it's technically a celestial spirit with a body of a bird. So.
Okay. So
They
yeah,
may
the
not
body of the
be-
bird would need to rest at some point. So I'll say
Yeah.
300 miles a day. So the first day you could probably get to the bay, and then
Okay.
early morning of the second day they could get over the city of Nornir.
Yeah, so I'll have Lux do that. You have your owl just turn around the instant that sees banners from the enemy army and let us know.
So sending
hawk.
the two birds out, and then the owl is supposed to return once ships are sighted.
Yes. Well, not ships, but just warships.
Ships are an army.
Yeah.
They're not unintelligent. Like I can tell. Like again, I think they could see banners, for instance.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Then-
Victor wants to talk to Ruby and ask if there's been any preparations for our house to kind of get ready to leave in case there is an invasion.
Ruby tells you if there is an invasion, the Veritas will stand and fight to the last here. And she doesn't like your implication at all. It's Nigel's job to stand here and fight for the country when it
I
comes to
don't
that.
think you understand the scope of the destruction that apparently happened in Nornir.
She says, I don't think you understand the scope of Father's duty.
What about Tinny and
Yeah. What about the kids?
grandmother and all
about the
them?
children?
Can we send them back to South Warren?
Nigel tells you that arrangements could be made, but what the nature of those arrangements would have to be and how quickly they would have to be put together just isn't known yet.
I would strongly suggest somebody start to think about that, at least for the children.
The first step in determining that would be finding out whether Endoline is sailing up the coast or up the river or both, and how far that they've advanced. So what you guys should do is try to scry inside the city to get some more information, and then maybe summon a pair of familiars to fly down along the river. Both of those would be really good ideas.
You think so? It's a shame we haven't thought of that yet.
Right. Okay. Nobody sleeps that night, so nobody takes the benefit of any kind of long rest. Take the benefit of short rest, I guess. The next day, there are public proclamations stemming from both the church and the office of the High Speaker, informing the people of Brennanine basically of two salient facts. One, that Nornir has fallen. Two, that Nornir was the shield of the Holy Republic, and absent that shield, it falls to Brennanine to protect the gates of the Republic from invasion. And there is quite a lot of patriotic feeling, of a very strong sense of people standing and fighting for their city, for the Republic they love, for their holy church. And the church is more or less proclaiming it to be every good Aetherine's duty to stand in defense of the Republic. That's the message that they're spreading. There isn't a lot of panic as of yet. In fact, if anything, spirits are high, mostly because the threat doesn't seem real the way that they've spun it. And speaking around the city, how is Endeline going to land on the shores of our lake? Are they going to sail their boats over, like, the Mendelin countryside? Like, how's that going to go? Later that day, an official request does come down from the High Speaker's offices, requesting that Veritas put some of its magics to exactly the kind of efforts you guys have already done. And that's when Ekon would reveal that they've got Chrisen.
Yep.
Okay.
I also, over the night, like while we're, resting, and hopefully my brother is apparently keeping very close eye on the guy. Like, I would like to have whatever amount of theological discussion, or just if he wants to tell me whatever he can about his religion, that I'll be taking notes on. And again, I just think, I think given his actions, I should put in a good word for him outside of his, obviously heretical, burning people alive, fire cultist status.
The extent of the discussion he's willing to have with you is that he came to your house to share the information he had, and this does not make you brothers in faith. And that's it. You are stonewalled after that.
Okay.
He does not want to have a debate about the finer points of your theological differences.
Victor, if given a chance, would like to talk to Christian to find out more about the artifacts they're using and how they do the magical fire stuff. And
none of your business. He's willing to tell you nothing.
I'll ask him if he wants to pray.
Not with you. Both of you make an insight check individually.
13?
13? How did Victor do?
17?
17?
I think.
Ekon, you're not totally sure why he would be cagey about having this discussions, these kinds of, if not with you, with some representative of the church. You would think, like, if he, like, the Holy Church is corrupt and needs to be reformed and brought back to its fire and brimstone roots kind of thing, you would think that he would be much preachier than he actually is.
Yeah, I would think he would want, like, oh, look, maybe if I'm killed, one of my other fire priests can say, hey, look at all this stuff that one of your own Aethars wrote about our religion.
Yeah, and when like you point that out, and he just has no interest in sharing, and you can't figure out why. Victor, you definitely receive the sense of veiled disgust. He doesn't want to come across that way, but you can tell he just does not have any respect for you, or especially for Ekon.
So sad.
All right, so the church knows that you guys are putting Chrisen to use. Obviously, they want him turned over as soon as you've exhausted what it is you need to do with him for your scryings to work. The information that Ruby gleaned from the scrying is turned over, and Brennanine holds its breath.
And Victor tells Ekon to hold off on putting a good word in for this dude.
Put in a bad word for him. I'm going to go ahead and post a straw poll in the chat. And that's what we will call it for the week. How you guys manage, this is what, like episode 8 or 9 or something? How you guys managed to get a whole city destroyed on the map, I don't even know. You weren't even there.
Rickard, you cannot blame this on us.
I just did.
100%, absolutely not our fault. Like, I'm channeling some Treble here. It's like, this is 100% not our fault.
Is Treble usually correct when he says that?
Yes.
That's not the point. That's not the point.
Excuse me. I'm sitting right here.
There is one more question I would
love
ask
you,
of
Treble.
Jeannie before we break for the week.
Uh-huh.
Is emotionally, how does Jeannie manage Abernathy over the course of the next day or two?
She's sympathetic, but mostly concerned about preparations for the oncoming assault.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like, she acknowledges that he had a rough time, but we got shit to do. Kind of
So
situation.
Jeannie goes and visits and notices, I acknowledge that you are sad. All right, I'm going to go put the steam engine on a boat and attach
put
my
armor plates
decanter
on
to
it.
it.
But put the steam engine on a boat with armor plates, and I have a cannon too. And I'm gonna make a Civil War era ironclad, and we're gonna march down the. No, I'm just...
Didn't like a bunch of men die in those things because they were death traps?
Yeah.
I like this plan. I'm going to go dark for a few minutes while you guys talk about who deserves some blips. Victor has a new flaw for this week. Let's see if he claims it. And I'll be back in about 2 minutes.
The most creative today.
Got nothing.
Creative? I mean, pushing Victor into the water was pretty creative, I guess.
Let's see. That's.
I'm
Still
gonna
owe me 20 gold.
You said I could just owe you.
That's what I just said. You owe me 20 gold.
I'm gonna put forth Victor for advancing the stuff this week.
Yeah, he was our ear on the ground during that very important conversation.
That's party
Yeah.
goals.
Party goals, yeah.
It was a badass.
We didn't do any fighting.
I think Ekon's a badass for pushing Victor in the water.
I think that for creative, it's it has to do with the scrying and the sending familiars down, but I don't remember. That was kind of whose job was who was that?
Familiars
Okay.
were my idea. The scrying was Ekon's, I think.
Yeah.
I think. And the badass thing was definitely agreeing to my random ass statement of pushing of me. Yes, I'll pay you 20 gold if you'll push him into the.
So you want to give creative to Evie for suggesting the familiar reconnaissance?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I want to give. I listen. I want to give because I found it delightful, McDohl. I want to give you intangible for taking the time to paint consistently, like to sketch and paint.
I'll second that.
Because I want you to continue to do this. I want, because that's It's good. I like that. It's like, yeah, I got a quiet moment of not like it's like Edmont likes to punch things, but he's also got he's got an artistic side where he likes. It's a good idea. It's good. I like it. It's good character building.
Well, thank you.
It's probably a better character building thing than me going that my character is sexually excited by machinery.
Yeah, not gonna lie, that's a little bit distressing.
Is it more or less just distressing than so we have twins, one of them is sexually excited about machinery, and the other one is sexually excited about blades.
I have 2 words for you. Mnemonic rapier.
Pneumatic rapier?
Yep.
I'm just not going to acknowledge that.
I got nothing. Just gonna keep my mouth shut.
Just slide it in and out.
All right. Who wants some experience points?
I'll take some.
Sure, I'll take some.
Hey, everybody gets 0 experience points. There were no combat encounters.
Right.
Okay. All right. See you next week.
Who wants to make a case for some blips?
I could go.
Could you?
Yeah. In fact, bye. No. So, chaotic neutral, when in doubt, go with my gut. I'm coming to the conclusion, just, again, Abernathy made a really strong first impression, just gut reaction. Jeannie actually likes him.
See, not all of your dates in D&D are unpleasant.
We're still at 50%. It's still a failing. Look, you got it. Okay, don't pat yourself on the back yet. Next campaign, we'll get it up to like what, 66%, which is a D. So
He's a pass.
what would Nigel do for my, like, what can we do to defend the city? Like, is there anything we can do? Like, we can't do, this is not tenable. Can we do something maybe smaller scale? Like, just, like, we have to stand and defend, and then, that kind of thing. And then my flaw, don't worry about it. It was just a setback for taking Victor's ribbing and then having Ekon push him off the boat.
And then trying to punch him in the face.
And then trying to punch him in the face with my little girly arms. Yes. I feel like Jeannie tries to hit Victor a lot. But she's very poor at it.
I don't know that I think that Jeannie tries to hit Victor enough, honestly.
He's just trying to help.
You're doing
you're
a poor
not
job of it.
What is that? Hold on. There is a quote, as many things in life. There is a quote relevant in The Big Lebowski. You're not wrong. You're just an asshole.
I think that describes Victor perfectly.
So while I want to know Treble is, Ekon here with his 5 strength. Were you expecting him to telekinetically push Victor off the boat?
Yes.
I
Okay.
absolutely was.
Okay. Just making sure.
Is that it?
The video.
Okay.
And I guess if you'll give me a blip for it, my little... Oh, the leg fell off. Crap, where'd it go?
Well, I would have, but the
Oh,
leg
no!
fell off.
Gotta
No,
find
I'm not giving him a blip because you made toys for yourself.
Oh, okay.
That stupid thing has caused me nothing but grief.
I'm leaving
It didn't even make an appearance in this episode.
I'm putting the...
Yeah, why do you think there was no combat this session? Like, what's the point with
He's
that little...
afraid. He's afraid of the combat. He's afraid of that little chess piece.
Well, it's way less dangerous if we're like level 16.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still, like, mitigating 10 points of damage a turn. A lot of monsters' damage comes from multi-attack.
Who's next?
I'll go.
Edmont.
I've got my flop, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on you, for not quite realizing that, maybe the rumors of him getting shivved in an alley didn't make it all the way around to good old Uncle.
To Nigel, you mean?
No, to what's the other fellow name?
Sherry?
Valeri?
Yeah, Valeri. Yeah.
Oh, as far as I know, you guys didn't tell anything about like that to Valeri.
I figured word would have gotten around at some point. I guess it's just not that important. But I also have my alignment lawful neutral. Take everything you can, get nothing back, for making sure that our prisoner is properly secured. He's the one who's watching him.
Okay.
He's taking it up on himself.
All right.
That's it.
Who's next?
Oh, sorry. There's one other thing. I'm changing my ideal.
Okay.
Life is my canvas, and I will make my mark on it.
Nice.
I like that.
All right, let me type that in. All right, and I think Victor is next.
So for the alignment, ends justify the means. Trying to make Jeannie and Abernathy's date awkward to make sure that Abernathy was there for the right reasons and wouldn't be easily driven off, and also trying to give Jeannie an out in case she wanted to take it.
Oh, is that what Victor was doing?
Yeah.
He wasn't doing it very well.
I don't think Jeannie knew that.
For the ideal, seek the truth no matter the cost. Being willing to go immediately spy on Abernathy after that wonderful night together.
Jeannie thought you were making fun of her.
Okay.
And then for the flaw, valuing knowledge over people. So sort of sacrificing his own sleep to spy all night, as well as trying to get people to go get the relics over the refugees, and trying to make sure the knowledge of the house is preserved from the impending tidal wave of death.
Literal tidal wave?
Literal or figurative.
Okay.
Or
Who's-
literal.
Alleged tidal wave.
Who's next?
I can go.
Okay, Evie.
Okay, so her alignment, mess with my family, mess with me, for her conversation of passing the torch to Orson, in case she's not around anymore. Then her ideal, a chess master must move her pieces to the position of greatest advantage for proposing the idea of either blockading the river or sending the familiars up and down the river to locate her enemies.
Okay.
And for flaw, I don't think anything actually blew up in Evie's face for once.
Not literally.
Except Nornir. But Nornir did in a more abstract sense.
Yeah, but your face was nowhere near it.
Well, yeah.
Your face was miles and miles away. And that leaves Ekon.
So I've got my ideal. Give me a reason for his decision to try and put in a good word for Grissom with the church, given the information he's given to save people's lives over his heretical status and fire priest burning people alive stuff. And then I've got my alignment, lawful good, the shining words of air, lay down a path for us all, and the path for Victor was off the edge of the boat.
So you didn't throw Victor off the boat. It was God's hand that intervened.
Yeah. Literally. I don't control the supernatural, it just happens around me.
The fact that you made 20 gold.
Listen, he was doing God's will.
Well, technically God made 20 golds. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right. So Edmont, you had 6 and you earned 2.
Sure.
I believe right now.
Did we do the...
Oh, we haven't yet.
Party?
No, you're right. I'm getting ahead of myself. Who had the most creative solution to a problem this session?
It was Evie for the for at least part of the this is what we should do as a first response. So we should, like, can we send guys down the river to do it?
Okay. And who did the most to further the party's goals?
That was Victor for spying on the tavern.
And who was the badass?
That was Ekon for shoving Victor into a lake.
And one for intangibles.
That was McDohl for his lovely character development with the paint.
And Jeannie has our straw poll this week. Even though she still didn't get laid.
I mean, not before marriage.
So blips are worth 126. I don't think we have anybody level 5 yet, do we?
No.
Okay. So Edmont, you have 6 and you've earned 3. You want to come in next week with 6?
Sure. What are they worth again?
126. 126. Ekon, you had 6 and you earned 3. Evie, you had 4 and you earned 3. So you're rolling over at least 1. Are you coming in next week with 6?
Yes. Yes.
Gina, you had 6 and earned 5.
Okay.
And Victor, you had 6 and earned 4.
What is again number worth?
How
Much are they worth?
126.
What's level 5?
6,500.
Okay. All my blips would put me at exactly 6,001. So no,
Okay.
I'll be coming in with 6.
All right, and next week let's see if the same thing that happened in Nornir will also happen in Brennanine. I mean, I did warn you guys that I drew a lot of inspiration for this campaign from Suikoden. McDohl, would you like to tell us what always happens 3 or 4 hours into a Suikoden game?
Everything is nice and nobody has any bad things happen.
Have you even played a Suikoden game?
Sometimes
Never.
your soul gets
Not
eaten
even
by a
once.
rune.
There's a wedding, right?
What if I ready an action to cast Create or Destroy Water?
We have a decanter of endless water. Technically,
That's
we
the
have more water
opposite
than
of what
them.
we need.
Can I use my decanter of endless water to catch the entire tidal
If it
wave?
can hold endless water, then it should be able to contain endless water.
Solution: we can force an evacuation of the city by just turning that container upside down and walking away.
Use Genie's bag of holding.
So
Just
your
drain the
plan
whole thing.
is to keep the people of Brennanine from being washed into the lake by an endless torrent of water by creating an endless torrent of water in the middle of the city of Brennanine.
In the opposite direction.
No, it'll slowly fill up the streets as opposed to a giant tidal wave that knocks everything down, so it's safer.
You guys all have bad plans. I'm leaving now. Thanks for playing.
Thank you.
Goodbye.